So over the past couple of months, really, I've been looking over my career, trying to reflect, and I came across this video file from a conversation that I had with the Omani Student Association at the University of Kentucky. In January of 2019, they reached out to me to talk to them as a mentor, to tell them about my story and what advice I had for them. Given where we are in the world, I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to share this presentation with other Omani students that are studying internationally, actually any international student. It's about my experience being an international student, navigating the system, the things that I learned, the mistakes that I've made. My goal is to always give back and help develop the future labor force. And this is an opportunity for me to share with them a presentation that happened between a small group of individuals in Lexington, Kentucky in a cold winter night of January 2019. If you have an international student or an Omani student studying internationally, share this with them. Hopefully they could learn from my mistakes and my successes. It is our role as individuals that have gone through the system to tell the story of how we got there. In today's world, most of the youth think that success happens and failure does not happen. We need to make that transparent. We need to show them how we navigated the system. So Omani students, if you're watching this, enjoy it. Reach out to me. My role is to help you, especially if you're in the United States. I can provide assistance. To the Omani Student Association in Lexington, Kentucky at the University of Kentucky, go Wildcats. Thank you so much for inviting me. I cherish this video.
Today, we welcome UK alumnus Dr. Abdullah Bahrani. He's the director of the Center for Economic Education and Associate Professor of Economics at Northern Kentucky University, NKU. He received his PhD from UK in 2010, and his research focuses on financial literacy education and financial behavior. Dr. Al-Bahrani is native of Oman and is passionate in mentoring international students as they achieve academic success. Dr. Abdullah, we're very proud of you and honored to have you here to discuss your experiences and your story. Thank you.
Fatima, thank you so much for that introduction. Thank you everybody for being here today. I'm proud to be here today as well. One of the things that I've always wanted to do is be able to mentor and influence the future generation. How many people are from Oman here? Okay, so today's goal is to tell you what my story is, what my international story is. And unfortunately, when we talk about international students, we lump them all together as if we all have the same experience. My experience is extremely different than anybody else's here. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tell you my stories, and hopefully something resonates with you. Not everything's going to make sense to you or apply to your personal lives, but I hope that when you walk out of here, there's at least one thing that you will take with you. Okay? So today's about me. We get to talk about me and the things that I've accomplished and the failures that I've faced. We often don't talk about mistakes, right? But I didn't get here without making any mistakes. So maybe you'll learn from my achievements, maybe you'll learn from my mistakes. I would like to keep the dialogue going, okay? I know we have about 45 minutes to an hour today. You can reach to me via Twitter or Instagram. You can use the formal way of communicating if you'd like through my email address. And I'll have this up at the end. So, what's my story? The first thing that people ask me is, who are you? Because the truth is, I don't fit in a typical box. People look at me, they're like, Abdullah Bahrani, that's a very Arab name. Abdullah Bahrani, he's from where? The Gulf, probably. But then they hear my accent and they're like, whoa, this guy sounds like he's from Kentucky. What's going on? It's confusing. But the beauty of that is I get to define what my identity is. I get to tell you today the way you get to see me, or the way I want you to see me. So the first thing that I define myself with is I'm an Omani Associate Professor of Economics. As Omanis, we know that Oman is always part of your identity, no matter where you go. That Oman will always be part of you. And yes, a lot of cultures, a lot of nationalities have that pride as well. But in Oman, I think it's because of how small our population is, how we know each other, we know each other's families. That's always ingrained in us. But not only is it about the nationality, the reason being Omani is important to me is because of a story or a line that my mom told me when I was 16. The lady there is my mother, Dr. Sana Belushi. And my mother, when I was 13, got a scholarship from the State Department of the United States to come do her PhD at the University of Louisville. So she picked my brother and I was 13, my brother was 11, and said, you know what, we're going to Louisville, Kentucky, so I could further my education. And as Omanis, we know that the education system is an important aspect of who we are. So we get here, and luckily my mother graduates in 3 years. So she does her PhD in 3 years. That means she graduates when I'm 16, which is a great thing, but it's a horrible thing for me. It's a horrible thing for me because for 3 years, I've been studying the US system. I came here as a 9th grader. I didn't have any Arabic studies or Islamic studies. If you go back to Oman for your 12th grade year, you're repeating years. So we had to make a decision. And the decision that we made is, Abdullah, instead of doing 11th grade, you're going to do 11th and 12th grade at the same time. So I started school at the University of Louisville as a 16-year-old. That isn't a problem. There's a lot of people that start school as a 16-year-old. But my brother, Aoun, who was 14, said, Abdullah, you can't stay here by yourself. I don't want to repeat classes. I want to stay here with you. So here's a 16-year-old that started as a freshman that has a 14-year-old brother that's living with him. So this is not an experience that any of you have. This is unique to me. Yes, we had a guardian that we reported to. We lived in the same apartment complex. But Aoun was my responsibility. Every morning, I woke up in the morning. I took him to his high school. I left his high school at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I went to campus. So that meant I couldn't schedule any classes I wanted. That also meant at 2:30, when Aoun was leaving school, I had to go pick him up. And then I had to drop him off home and then go back to my evening classes. I had to manage the bills. I had to manage his insurance and all of the stuff that is associated with it. So my undergraduate experience is totally different, and I don't expect anybody to understand that. But because of that experience, it shaped my future. So we talk about me wanting to mentor. Why? Where does that originate from? Maybe it has something to do with that experience with my brother, that I grew up thinking that way. So when my mom left us when I was 16 years old, first of all, this is an extremely difficult decision for a mother to make. My father, too, was part of this decision making. To leave your 16 and 14-year-old and leave because you trust them so much and you trust the value of education and the hopes that they will be successful. That day that she left, I remember it vividly. She sat my brother and I down and she gave us all the advice that mothers give their children. But there's one thing that was a little bit different. She said, Abdullah, you're an ambassador of Oman. Make us proud. So that's why being Omani is so important to me. Because every day when I walk and I talk, I have this belief that I'm representing every member of the Omani culture, every Omani national. So when I see the Omanis here, I am proud. Because I am holding my promise to my mom. So that's the Omani aspect of me. But I'm also a researcher. I love thinking. I love solving problems. I'm an educator. I teach students all the time. But most importantly, the capacity that I'm here today is to be a mentor. So I ask that you allow me to be a mentor. So now that you know where we're at and the fact that you're here, how are we going to mentor you? Well, the first thing that a mentor does is they give praise. And I want to acknowledge everything that you had gone through to get to here today. Nobody recognizes the difficulties international students face to get to here. You got accepted to the University of Kentucky, one of the best institutions. I might be biased, I graduated from here, but I truly believe it. But before you got accepted to the University of Kentucky, you probably filled out scholarships. How many of you are on scholarships from back home? Getting scholarships is not easy. Trust me, I tried to get a scholarship from Oman, I didn't get one. So you're already ahead of me. The other thing you did is you left everything that you know. Everything that you know. Because you wanted to educate yourself. You got on a plane. Some of us had to learn a new language when we got here. You definitely had to learn a new culture. Big Blue Nation has its own language. But you know what I meant when I said Big Blue Nation. Not anybody else knows that. You had to fight homesickness on a daily basis. I know that. I fight it till today. That smell of muscat in the morning, you can't take that from somebody's senses. Every day you fight it. And you have to fight social perspectives. You have to fight that perspective that, yes, I do belong here. Especially in our current political system, we have to talk about that. How do we belong? So I congratulate you for being here today. I congratulate you for everything that you're doing to further your education. So with that said, you're here. What do you do now? So you made it to college, to the University of Kentucky. The way I see it is you have three options from here. The first option is to get your undergraduate degree and you return home, which is what most international students do. The other option is you get your undergraduate degree and you decide to work, get your OPT, H-1B visa, whatever it is, but you stay here to get that experience, which is an option that's available to you. And then finally, the other option that I see is you get your undergraduate degree and you enroll into graduate school. And those are the three options. So the truth is, I'm going to tell you the secret, that to succeed in any of these three things, it's the same process. There's only one method, and we're going to talk about the details of that. But the punchline is you have to do more than just go to class and focus on your GPA. And that's the reason that we're having today's talk, is how do you navigate undergraduate education and get the most of it. I know some of you are seniors, but there's still things that you can do to get the most out of this experience. So I can't tell you what to do if I don't tell you how I have failed in the past. So you know that I started at the University of Louisville when I was 16. I had, a family pressure that I had to handle. I started off as a chemical engineer major. Okay, that's my background. And the reason I picked chemical engineer is because if you're in Oman, you're either a doctor or an engineer. So that's what we were fed. And most importantly, I was great at math. At least that's what I was told. I don't know. But people said you're great at math. I said, all right, great. So if you're great at math and you want to make money, engineer, you want a job in Oman, you become an engineer. That's it. So which engineering? Chemical engineering, because of all the petrol and the gas in Oman, and that's what I did. I applied to get a scholarship from Oman, but they're like, you graduated from American high school. This doesn't apply for you. This is for people that graduated from Omani schools. I was like, okay. I went out, and at that time, there was a company in Oman giving private loans to students that would are perceived to succeed. So they would fund you. But they didn't fund you directly. They funded you the same way everybody that has scholarship would be funded, and that's they would give the money to the cultural attaché, and then I would have to do everything that scholarship students did, which is what? At the end of every semester, you send your transcript. If you don't send your transcript on time, you don't get your money. So I faced all of those issues. But because I was working with the cultural attaché, I had another restriction. And this restriction, I think, might be international, but I know it applies for Omani students. If you want to change your major, you can't. So 3 years into my degree, I'm like, you know what? Felt like a failure. didn't know what I was doing. I was not passionate. I took an econ class and I was like, I love this. I need to change my major to economics. Can't do that. So what am I going to do? I don't advise you to do this if you're from Oman. I just unofficially changed my major. I started taking classes in economics and I stopped taking chemical engineering major classes, and I filled out the whole paperwork, and right before I was going to graduate, I declared my econ major, and I sent that letter to the cultural attaché, and they're like, what's happening? I was like, I'm graduating. I'm graduating. And that's how I became an econ major. But I had to face that. So I did a 5-year program, undergraduate, at the University of Louisville, 3 years in chemical engineering, and the last 2 years in economics. And when I changed my major, my life changed. And what changes now is I'm allowed to do what I'm passionate about. Well, I chose to do what I was passionate about. So, as far as my degree, I completed it, but there's a lot of mistakes that I made too. And I think some of these mistakes are universal for our undergraduate students. It's not just an international student issue. I advise students at Northern Kentucky, and this is common. Lack of involvement. So, when I was at the University of Louisville, I showed up to class and I left. That's what school's for, right? No. I tell my students today that 80% of what you learn actually happens outside of the classroom. 20% of it happens in the classroom. So the other 80% happen in situations like this, where we're sharing dialogue, we're talking to each other. So you need to put yourself in more environments. And I know the Advising Center over here has a lot of events. So the requirement or the expectation was to attend 3 events. Make it 8. What do you have to do at 6:30 on a Thursday? Nothing. That's where you learn, you share ideas, and you're part of the dialogue process. So I focused only on grades, and that's typical in today's society because we are GPA driven. But the truth is, if somebody walks in with a 3.9 and they can't tell me anything else other than what theories they learned in class, versus somebody that comes in at 3.5 with a lot of experiential learning, I will always pick the 3.5. And I say this from experience because I hired people. I hired recent graduates, and we're going to talk about my work experience in a minute. I will pass up on the GPA. Yes, GPAs are great, but I'm saying on the margin, do something else. So lack of experiences, lack of communication, and this is really important. I think this is more of an international student concern. We don't want to burden our professors. At least in Oman, we were brought up that their teacher is on a pedestal. You keep them on a pedestal, you don't respect them, you don't take their time. So what that does is when you come to college, you don't go ask your teacher for help. You don't go ask your teacher about what they do outside of the classroom. We are individuals, we have our own experiences. So what ended up happening is when I came to the point where I wanted to apply for graduate school, I didn't have reference writers. Because I stayed to myself and I didn't want to burden that professor by telling them what I'm passionate about. So go out, seek them. Now that I'm on the other side, I'm like, if a student comes, talks to me, I love it. I love it. And I'm like, why did I not know this back then? So don't underutilize your professors. They're here. Talk to them. So after I did my undergraduate degree, I did my master's at American University. That's actually where both of my parents did their masters. My father in economics and my mother in English as a second language. Why did I pick American University? Because that's where my parents went. I didn't have any advice because I didn't talk to professors. American University is a great place, but I literally applied to 2 schools. My advice today for my students, apply to 10 schools. At the minimum, 10 schools, assuming that you could afford the registration fees. Those are expensive, and that's something to also budget for. So in 2002, in May, I graduated with my undergraduate. In June, I started my master's degree, and I did it in 1 academic year. By August 2003, I had a master's in economic theory. I didn't know what to do with my life.
Do I go to Oman? The other reason I picked American University is because I wanted to be in Washington, D.C., close to the World Bank. Because ultimately that's where I wanted to end up working. I eventually got a job in the mortgage business. They said, you know what, this is during the housing boom, we need people to sell mortgages. In 2006, in March, I got my acceptance letter to the University of Kentucky, and I figured out what I was going to do for the next 4 to 5 years. So I worked until May of 2006. And if you know anything about the mortgage business, that's when the mortgage business was starting to go down. And I like to tell people that I forecast the downturn of the economy, and that's why I left in May. But in reality, the reason I left in May was because the World Cup was starting and I wanted to watch the World Cup. So I left, it was actually June. In July, I moved down here to Lexington. By August, I started my PhD program. I finished my PhD program in 4 years. Here, again, best time of my life. So today, what do I do today? I'm an associate professor of economics. That means I teach economics and I also do research in economics. My research is focused on financial behaviors, actually household finance is what's called. Why do people make the decisions they make with respect to their money? Okay? So this research is actually influenced by my experience in the mortgage business because I didn't understand the things people were doing with their money. And I didn't understand that why different people in different states had different behaviors. So what does state policy have to do with it? Okay, so I asked those questions. My research also is focused on some of the things that are happening in Oman today, like the labor market. Okay? So I stayed in touch with Oman through that. At Northern Kentucky, my focus is student experience. The way I view my role is if you are a student of mine, I need to figure out what your goals are in life, and I need to facilitate that. And if you don't know what your goals are, that's fine. Let's talk about what do you like, what do you not like. So my role as a professor is to help guide you. So what's my advice to you? This is why you're here, right? First of all, my advice is think macro. A lot of my students are focused on one thing, and that thing is, what job could I do? And I'm going to tell you this, if you're focusing on the job, then you're always going to be behind. Because our economy is always changing, we're actually starting to move more towards a gig economy. So with the gig economy, your question should be, what problem do I want to solve in society? Or where is a problem in society? Once you figure out where the problem is, then you figure out what is my contribution here? How am I going to participate in this? If you are worried about Omani youth unemployment, that's the problem. How do you solve that problem? What is your role going to be? We have a lot of people that identify the problem, but they don't want to be part of the solution. And what they say is, I just want a job. Great, we all want a job. That's the problem. But problem solvers are going to be our future. And to identify what the problems are, you need to know what the problems are. And the way to figure out what the problems are is you attend dialogues like this. Join the Economic Society. Great organization on campus. Doing great things. As Dr. Patel is a good friend of mine. We went to grad school here. And we still work together on projects with helping students navigate the world of econ. Work on research with a faculty member. Remember where we said talk to the professors? I'll tell you a secret. If you walk into a professor's office and say, Dr. Patel, I'll pick on him today. That's what he gets for being my friend. Dr. Patel, can you tell me what your research is about? That's it. Conversation's done. He's going to talk for 30, 45 minutes. Because professors love to talk about what they do. And then what you could do when you end that conversation is, Dr. Patel, this is assuming that you're interested in it. Don't lie about it, right? Dr. Patel, this is really interesting. Is there any room for an undergraduate student to be part of this research? Dr. Patel, what's your answer usually? There's always a possibility. And now you've just navigated to this undergraduate research place that a lot of people don't take advantage of. I have 4 students currently working on research under my supervision. We're probably going to co-author papers together. What did it take? They came to my office. They said, you know, we're kind of interested in financial literacy. Is there more I could read about it? I was like, yes, read all my papers. and then come back to me and tell me what you thought. Some students never come back, but the students that come back, we find a way to work together. So the other limitation that you're going to have is there are limitations with work here in the United States for international students. So how do you navigate around that? Well, the on-campus work is available to you up to 20 hours. RAs, resident assistants, at halls, always needed. You get free housing. Yes, it's uncomfortable because you have to take care of other people. But you have to weigh the costs and the benefits. What do you want to experience, right? And then fellowships. There's a lot of fellowships, work over the summer that you could do, or work that's going to support your research. Most importantly, I don't know about you, but when I was in college as an undergraduate, this was my pattern. I'd start the semester, I would take my 16 weeks of classes, and the day I submitted my final, before the grade was posted, I was already on a flight to Oman. First flight out. And I got to Oman and I spent time with family and I said, yeah, I get to relax. I worked so hard. Right? And then the spring semester, I would do the same thing, and then I'd go back to Oman for 3 months. I worked so hard. I get to relax. I'll go to the beach, swim, go to grandma's house, kick it with the family. That's 3 weeks, 3 months that you could have been doing something. You don't have to spend the whole 3 months doing something. You could go on a study abroad. So the study abroad over here is how many weeks? Dr. Patel?
Just 24 days.
Just 24 days. How many hours do you get? Credit hours?
4.
4 credit hours. And you get to experience a part of the world. You get to experience working with other people. But most importantly, that's what employers are looking for. You can talk about that international experience. Yes, all of us are international students. No, you're students in America. International students means that you get to expose yourself to more international experiences. So you do this, you get the experience, and then you get the rest of the summer off. Things that I wish I would have done. One of the value addeds here, and I've had the privilege of working with your advisors as we plan this program. You have amazing advisors that really care about you. Okay? So reach out to them. They don't know how to help you if you don't tell them where your struggles are. Okay? And saying that you have struggles is nothing to be ashamed of. Okay? Because none of us have it fully figured out. So tell them how to support you best. Now, finally, reach out to me. I might not have all the answers. Okay? Your experiences might be very different than my experiences. But what I can do is I can help you navigate. I can find the answers for you or direct you to who might have the answer. Most important thing that I tell my students is communicate, tell people what you need. Because if you don't tell us what you need, then we assume everything's fine. That might be a bad assumption, but that's how we operate. Okay? So once again, social media or via email will work. So the last final tip is build your brand. That's it. That's how you succeed in all of these opportunities. And building your brand is by taking advantage of experiences and being able to talk about them. What makes you you? Who are you? That's all I have right now. Questions?
All right, so if you've made it this far, you've gotten to the point where you've heard my story, you've heard about my successes and my failures. If you're a student, once again, in the United States, an Omani student, trying to navigate the next steps of your life, reach out, allow me to be a mentor and advise you. I see it as my role. So thank you. Make sure to share this, subscribe for more content, leave a comment, tell me what you enjoyed about the story. So I can make sure that I continue to provide content that is important and well received by you. So thank you for watching, and see you next time.